Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Could everyone turn their camera on so I can see them?
Good morning.
Morning.
Please,
How
can
are you?
you give
Good
me a minute?
morning.
I'll turn my camera on.
No problem.
Thank you.
Right. All right, sir. You want to tell me, you want to do a recap of yesterday?
Yes.
All right, what do you have?
Okay. On our yesterday's lesson, I think we studied about the brain, and to my understanding, uh, when we are preparing our academic year, the way you said, we most of the time we don't involve the student. So I think it's very important we should consider the type of students. Sometimes maybe we don't meet the students. But when we are preparing for the lessons and the academic year, we should consider some of the students we might meet and prepare the lessons accordingly, just in case you meet the type of students you have already interacted with before. So you can prepare a program according to different type of students, just in case. Another thing is teachers should focus on the important information or the lessons, which might stick with the student, or the student might save this information, which is so important to them, than just giving them unnecessarily topics or lessons or activities which are not so important. So we should at least focus on the importance of what you are teaching, which might help the students in future, not just to save for the sake of exams, to save for the sake of quizzes. No, something that they will save it for the longest period of time. Uh, Another thing is also to their esteem.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Oh, I forgot to turn my microphone right. Get them to go the longest period of time. What will drive that? What will be the driving force in the student storing it in their long-term memory, storing information or experience in their long-term memory?
Now come again.
What would be a what would be a reason why a learner, a student
Okay.
will store information in their long-term memory?
Um, Something like that.
Remember what we talked about yesterday?
Yes.
So basically, because this is important point that I don't want you to miss out on. Students are more likely to store information in their long-term memory when they connect with the information in some real way. When when it
It's
when it's meaningful to something that they have already experienced in their life, right?
yeah. Yes.
Okay, so that's important to remember, and so that means that everything that we present to learners, they're not going to store it in their long-term memory. They're just not. You know, they're just not. Um, some again, there are some students that you will meet and have in your class that are intrinsically motivated. Um, Blessing, Miss Blessing, we're just
Yes,
what we're doing.
please.
What we're doing is we're recapping what we talked about yesterday. So that's how we
Okay.
always start. We start off by
Oh,
recapping what we had yesterday. All right,
okay.
and then we go into today's lesson. All right. So
Okay. That's okay.
so again, some students are intrinsically motivated. Okay. Some are intrinsically motivated, and these are the students that will, hang on to your every word. Why? Because they enjoy being in your class for what we talked about on day one, right? They enjoy being there for the sake because they just enjoy being there. But most of your students, well, we can't say most, but many of your students are there for other reasons. Again, they're there extrinsically. Most of your students are there for extrinsic reasons because their mother and father told them to come to school or told them to do this. Some are there just to be with their friends and integratively motivated. Some are there uh, for instrumental reasons, right? So just keep that. So when we present information to learners, we have to understand that number one, those students that you have in your class, they're there for different reasons. And that everything that you present to them, they're not going to store in their long-term memory. The best that we can hope for is that they store it in their working memory for the exam. Okay. So that's why learner profiling is extremely important. Getting to know your students. All right. If you start a class, if you start instructing or teaching anyone without getting to know them, then you are doing them a disservice. You're doing them a disservice. Passing the class is not good enough, right? Passing the class is not good enough. That's not a good reason. You need to know it because you need to know it. It's not a good reason, right? Information has to connect with the learner in a meaningful way that is relative to their lives. And the only way you can make it relative to their life is if you what? As if you know something about them, right? Now again, some learners, especially the older that people get, some learners don't want to share certain things about them, about themselves. They might be shy, right? So you have to find creative ways to get that information. And the great thing about it is, we have so many tools now via social media uh, where we can get to know our students. Okay. So using technology has become ever important to get to know our students. All right. In ways where it's acceptable for them. Now, when I say get to know your students, I'm not saying that you have to be your student's friend. Let's keep that in mind. But you definitely have to be friendly. I think we talked about that yesterday. All right. Especially, you don't have to be their friend. All right. It is good if you're their friend, as long as you're not crossing a line, especially with older kids. The older they get, the more difficult it is to be their friend because they are becoming more independent. As a younger kids, yeah, they want everyone to be their friend. Everyone is their best friend, right? So that's why younger kids are sometimes funner, they're a little bit more fun to teach because they're so naive. They don't have their independence yet, or a high level of independence. But the older a learner gets, the more independence that they have, and the more convincing you have to be in order to get information out them to serve their needs. Okay, this is extremely important. Now, that doesn't mean that younger kids, kindergarten, first grade, are easy to teach. Actually, they're quite hard because they're not independent, right? They're quite hard to teach. So, in my opinion, elementary school teachers, particularly, kindergarten teachers are the best teachers because they have an additional challenge of dealing with someone who doesn't have, who is not completely independent, right? Who doesn't, what we call agency, who don't have complete agency. The great thing about teaching adults is adults have agency, right? Do you know what I mean by agency? Any one of you know what I mean by agency?
No.
Does it mean independency?
Agency means is not just independency, but the ability to to set goals and move towards them. And these are three things that we talked about, I think, in day one, Sarah, when we talked about
Yeah.
self-determination, self-regulation, and self-efficacy. So that's how you can determine whether a learner has agency. Self-determination is the ability for what, Sarah? The ability for a learner to do what?
So set your own goals.
Set your own goals, right? So a
Yeah.
self-determined person is a person who can set their own goals, right? They can set their own goals. They're self-determined. They don't need someone else to set goals for them. A self-regulated person is a person who can do what?
They have their own willpower.
They have willpower. They can move towards their goals. So a lot of people are self-determined, but they're not self-regulated. So a lot of people set goals, but then they don't move towards their goals, right? So self-determination and then self-regulation, moving towards your goals, getting up every morning. So if you have a goal um, to be able to lift bench press 200 pounds, right? You got to go to the gym. You got to do those push-ups, right? So you can be self-determined and say, I want to be able to bench press 200 pounds, right? 200 pounds is about what? 80, 90 kilo? I don't know what it is, something like 90 kilo. I want to be able to bench press 90 kilo, right? All right. But then if you don't go to the gym, if you don't do push-ups, if you're not doing anything towards that goal, you're not, that means you're not self-regulated. You determined to do it, but you're not self-regulated. You have to be self-regulated. And a lot of times we go and buy things, right? Like you see, I see as an educator, I see this with people all the time. I want to learn English, Dr. Ray. Dr. Ray, I want to learn English. Okay. Can you teach me English? No, I can't teach you English. What do you mean? You're an English teacher. Uh, I have an English degree and I have a teaching degree. I don't know if I'm an English teacher. You can teach yourself English. I can help you, but teaching you, no, you're going to teach yourself because I'm not going to be there with you 24 hours a day, right? I'm not going to be there with you to read a book and study and practice. And I'm not going to be there with you that much time. You're going to teach yourself. I'm just there to be a companion, is what Vygotsky called a knowledgeable person. All right. Vygotsky is he's the father of social constructivism. All right. So when you hear people talk about um, problem-based learning and cooperative learning and all these things, that's a social constructivist point of view. And we talked about this yesterday, I believe, Sarah, when we said that social constructivists believe that we learn with our peers. So a point in social constructivism is that you have a knowledgeable person, and often, if you're a good educator, you know that often the best knowledgeable person are peers, colleagues, someone of the same age. Um, it is better that it is better for if I had a classroom of let's say 11th graders. As a good educator, I'm going to see how I can arrange my room in a way where they teach each other. So talking to one another, dialogue is extremely important. All right. So sometimes you may have heard I don't know. Are you currently teaching, Miss Blessing?
Yes, I am.
So you may have heard sometimes you may have heard in a professional development, people say, well, you need to reduce your teacher talk. Reduce your teacher talk. Reduce your teacher talk. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Okay. Have you heard that, Sarah? Reduce your teacher talk. Okay.
Yes.
So that's a social constructivist or constructivist kind of perspective. All right. We call it student-centered learning. We want the students to talk more. Why? Because the students will learn from each other better than they can ever learn from you. Because they can relate to each other more. Going back to what we talked about yesterday in the frontal lobe. We want that information to get to the frontal lobe. How does it get to the frontal lobe? Well, you have to convince the amygdala first. What is the amygdala concerned with? What can this information do for me? How will it help me? What's in it for me? So young people know each other better than you know them. So a 15-year-old knows, I don't know the new slang any now. I thought I was a cool guy. Now that I'm older now, I realize that I'm not cool anymore because I don't know the slang now. Like the slang now that the kids are using, I don't even know it. They it's almost like they speak in a different language now. Riz and sus, Riz, sus, and they got all these words. I'm like, what are you talking about? Right? But when I was 15 years old, we had our own terminology, right?
Mhm.
So because of that, they can actually relate to each other better than I can relate to them because they're the same age, right? Um, and always remember that. Always remember that the age trump when you're teaching. Age trumps everything. Everything. Age. Right. You in Saudi Arabia, you can have a class. You can be a teacher. You can be from Kenya, and all the students. I'm sorry. Yeah, you can have a class. Let's say you're in Kenya. Let's say you're in Kenya. You have a class of Kenyan students, right? All right. It's not the scenario. You're in Kenya. You have a class of Kenyan students, right? Um, uh, no. You're in Kenya. You have a class of different types of students. Some of them are Kenyan, right? Some students are from China, some are from South Africa, some are Americans, some are from Thailand, all over the world, Brazil, right? And you may think, well, I connect better. I'm going to connect more, or my Kenyan students are going to connect with me because I'm Kenyan, they're Kenyan. I'm from
Mm.
the same village. No, nope. They're going to connect more with each other, being from different areas of the world, different ethnicities, different nationalities, because of age. Because of age, right? Only because of age. Now, that's other age is not the only factor, but age is a big factor on how well you connect to the students. Why is connecting to the students important? Because again, that's the only way you're going to get information or the most information to their frontal lobe. And that's what we want. That is our job as educators, is to get the information, as much information as we can, into a learner's frontal lobe, right? And we have two barriers, and those two barriers are what, Sarah?
So what?
What are the two barriers that's stopping us from helping students get information to their frontal lobe?
Um, Fear.
Well, no, the two areas of the brain. Let me ask the question better. The two areas of the brain that blocks or could possibly block information to get from getting to the frontal lobe. You remember
Most of
it was the reticular activating system, the RES,
yes, right. Yes.
and then what's the other one?
We have amygdala.
The amygdala. So the
Yes.
RES and the amygdala are the two parts of the brain that stop information from getting to the frontal lobe. So your RES is your brain security guard. So
Yeah.
anytime you receive any input in life on a daily basis, that input first goes to your RES. And the RES is concerned with, is this information safe? Is this information safe? If the information is not safe, what happens, Sarah? What three things can
They
happen?
they fight, flight, and freeze.
Fight, flight, or freeze response. These are
Yeah.
natural responses. You either fight with the person, you freeze, or you flight, or you run away. Fight, flight, or freeze. All right. If the RES determines that the information is safe, then the information then goes to what part of the brain, Sarah?
If the information is safe, it will go to the frontal lobe.
No, no, no. Before it starts at the
Yeah, it will
RES.
go to yeah, it will go to amygdala, which is it will be decided there if it's good for me or it's not.
Right. So the amygdala is concerned with, is this, what's in it for me? Why I need to learn? Why do I need to learn how to add three-digit digits? How do I need to? Why rather do I need to learn how to add three digits? Right? Why do I need to learn that? Why do I need to learn geography? Why is this important? What's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? So again, as that's our job, is to present the information in a way where learners know they're going to get something out of it for learning whatever you're trying to teach them, or keeping that information in their long-term memory. And if you can convince them of that, then it goes to the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is here. So if you ever get hit, you don't want to get hit here. This is your thinking, your reasoning, your logic right here, part of your brain. All right. That's why when you get in a car accident, you get a concussion, you can lose, you can have short-term memory loss. It's right here. This is your thinking part of the brain right here. You know, thank God gave us a good, strong skull to protect it, right? But this is your thinking part of the brain. This in the back of your brain, where your brainstem is, this is your primitive part. This is your primitive part. This is where your anger is. This is where you're fighting. When you get mad about something, that's right here, right? And your RES is the reason why you get mad. All right. Because you have perceived that information to be dangerous. You have perceived that input to be dangerous. You see somebody stealing your phone. Is that safe? No, that's not safe. So, you're going to either get into fight mode, flight mode, or freeze mode, right?
Yes.
Depending on the situation, right? So that starts here. The amygdala is really close to the RES, somewhere here. And then your frontal lobe is here. Right. So we got so it's a destination. So everything that we do, keep that in mind. It's about getting that information to the frontal lobe. All right. I kind of stole your show. What else do you want to recap from yesterday, Sarah?
About is it Maslow
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
hierarchy of needs? Yes.
Hierarchy of needs.
What's that? What is that about?
Um, the needs we have
Okay.
Go ahead,
the
Sarah.
needs we yes the needs where we can push our limits. I think if we can push ourselves to self-actualization or to push ourselves past the esteem.
Right. To push yourself. But does everyone even get to esteem in life?
Come again?
Does everyone get to esteem in life? Let me just put this up on the screen So for the benefit of Miss Blessing here. But my question is, does everyone get to esteem in life?
Just a few percentage, I think.
Right? Yeah, I mean, but the answer is that no, right?
No,
Everyone
yeah.
doesn't even. Some of us don't ever get to even esteem. And let's put that up for a second. Hold on a second here. You guys, do you see that the hierarchy of needs?
Not yet
Do you see
for
it?
me.
Nothing. Let's see.
Yes.
Yeah, it's there.
Is there? Okay. Hold on a second. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. What about now? Do you see it?
No. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So some of us never get to esteem. For many people, that's where kind of most people stop because we want money, we want glitter and gold, we want to be successful, we want the big house, we want the nice car, the Lamborghini, the Lexus. You know, we want to be able to take trips to Maldives and Paris and buy Louis Vuitton. You know, we want to get master's degrees and we want that people call us doctor and yada yada yada. That's esteem. But many people never even get past their physiological needs, right? So unfortunately, some people live right in situations where they're always searching for water, for food, for shelter, right? And you'll be surprised how many people, and that's the barrier that they face in life because they never get past their physiological needs. Some of us are blessed with parents who are successful, right? And we don't ever have to worry about where we're going to get food and water. Some of us have safety issues. Some of us grow in households or neighborhoods that are unsafe. So there's safety concerns there. I grew up in America in Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore, Maryland, one of the most dangerous cities in America. They made television shows about my city, right? So a lot of people are stuck in, even though they don't have a problem with food and water, they can get and they have shelter. They have what their barrier is safety, and that stops them from success. Some people don't. They grew up in with money, never have to worry about shelter, never have to worry about food, never have to worry about safety. They grew up in a nice, safe community, but maybe their mother didn't love them the way they wanted to, or their father, or they're searching for friendships. You know, they're considered the nerd or the geek. They can't form and make friendships, so they're searching for love and belonging, right? Some of us get to that esteem phase, right? Where we want to be recognized, we want to have power, we want people to envy us, right? And then ultimately, the highest of our needs is self-actualization, being able to be a benefit to our larger community, understanding that life is beyond us, that there's more than our own needs, that we're more concerned with the complete society, the world, humanity. That's self-actualization. Very few people get to that point. Our job as educators is our main purpose as educators is to help students move towards self-actualization, right? Many of us will never see that in our learners, right? Because that's the highest form of humanity is when we become self. So if you're an elementary school teacher, if you're a middle school teacher, you rarely will see those acts, especially in your middle school, because kids are going through all these psychological, chemical chain things. They're going through puberty. You know, they're trying to figure out what's going on with their bodies. Things are going on at home. So they're nowhere near self-actualization, right? Because they're in the kind of the chaotic stage, high school, college. There's another different, you're moving from being a juvenile to an adult, right? So self-actualization for us teachers, for us educators, we don't see it. Sometimes we see glimpses of it and we try to induce it, but we don't really see it in its natural form, which makes our job kind of sucky because all we are is we help learners get to that point, right? We help learners get to that point where they become self-actualized. All right. But that's our job. A little bit different than an instructor we talked about in day one, right? An instructor's job is to teach math, do a particular act, teach you how to drive a car, teach you how to do a particular thing. Educators' jobs are to help create a a better world, a self-actualized world. All right. A lot of educators don't understand it and don't know that. And that is typically the problem with education. All right. Anything else you want to talk about from yesterday so we can move on to our new topic? Sarah? That's it?
Yeah, that's it. Maybe
Okay.
Blessing might need anything she might ask.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna give you. I kind of gave you the lesson, the kind of short version. We'll go over that, or I'll even share with you the link so you can watch what we talked about in day one and day two. Okay. Um, and a lot of times there's a lot of reoccurring themes. So I'll repeat myself because it's important that you understand that all the information that we're giving you in this course, they work in concert with one another. So a lot of times I'm going to repeat themes over and over again. Uh, just for your benefit, Blessing, I'm going to add you to a Google Classroom. The Google Classroom is going to have the textbook in it. It's going to have resources in it. I'll upload resources. I'll put the links for the for this conversation, so you can go back and review. What did he say about this? You can go back and review it. The good thing about Google Classroom is that you're in the classroom forever, right? Until they get rid of Google Classroom, you're in that classroom forever, and so you can always go back and utilize those resources. Until Google decides they're not gonna support Google Classroom anymore. Okay. Um, so, and then also there's a daily journal. So hopefully you take notes. Sarah seems like she takes excellent notes. Take notes in this conversation along with the reading from the textbook. And you're going to do a daily journal. Okay. And the daily journal asks two questions. Number one, what did I learn from the talk and from the reading? And number two, how can I use what I learned in my teaching? And that should be easy because you're already teaching, right? So you kind of already have that. You already have that perspective as a teacher, that point of view. All right. Today we're going to talk about lesson planning. Now, lesson planning is something that most teachers hate, and I've heard in my 25 years in education, I've heard teachers say you don't need the lesson plan. And every time I've heard that, it absolutely drives me nuts. It absolutely drives me nuts because of the things that we talked about in day one and day two. You cannot just take a generic plan and present it to a group of learners. It just simply doesn't work that way because everyone has different wants, needs, and expectations. Right? Some of the information that you may be presenting, this learners may already know it. Some learners may have difficulty in certain aspects of their receiving information. Some may be fearful of certain things. Like for me, I'm fearful of math. Every time I get around math, I get a little shaky. As I get older, I become a little bit better. But when in my younger days, I used to be just phobia of math, right? Um, History, I love it. Anything humanities, love it. Math, always had an issue. Always scared of it. So we had the lesson plan. As we said yesterday, 90% of what you do as an educator is planning. 90% of it is planning. All right. Only 10% is execution. 90% is plan. All we do is plan, 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 plan. Soon as the students leave the class, we start to reflect. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? How can I make it better next time? Right? Planning. We always it's what we call action research as teachers. Action research. This continuous state of planning, of acting that is not idle. It is perpetual. How can I support my students better? How can I help them become self-determined, self-efficient, self-regulated? That's what you're always thinking about. All right. So um, so you have the lesson plan. This bottom line. All right. Now, if you teach the same grade or the same subjects every year, then yeah, it gets a little bit easier because you already have what I call a skeleton plan, and all you have to do is adjust that plan. All right. But you still need to adjust. You're adjusting a plan for what? The wants, needs, and expectations of the learners in your class. The students that you had last year are completely different than the students that you have this year. Completely different. Okay? They can be the same nationality, same age group. They are completely different. Okay? Different experiences, different situations, different timings, different age. All right. So, so you always have to adjust your plan, and you always have to lesson plan. Again, the longer you teach, the easier it becomes. What is a lesson plan? A lesson plan is uh, is reflective of the larger yearly plan. So you cannot daily lesson plan without having a year plan. Impossible. All right. That's like saying we're going to go on vacation. Okay. Well, how are we going to get there? I don't know. I guess we'll go by airplane. Okay. Well, where are we going to go? I don't know. I guess we'll go to Russia. Okay. All right. Did you? All right. It's going to be expensive because we didn't pre-plan. Okay. We get to Russia. All right. Now we're in Russia. Where are we going to stay? Hotel, hostel, friend's house. Stay at a hotel. Now it's more expensive again because you didn't pre-plan. All right, what are we going to do in Russia? I don't know. I guess we'll go and visit the the Kremlin. Okay, what else are we going to do? Right? It's not going to be a very good vacation if you didn't pre-plan it out. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be logistics are going to be off because how are you going to get there? You're going to spend time at the airport. You're going to eat bad food, right? You might get yourself in a bad situation because you didn't do your research in advance. Maybe there's some maybe there's an election. We all know, right? You guys from Kenya, what happens during election years? Do you want to visit Kenya during an election time? No, you don't want to visit Kenya during an election, right? right? So if you didn't do your homework, you go, I'm gonna go to Kenya, and it's election time. I don't think you're gonna like Kenya too much, right? During that time because you didn't properly plan, right? So, so that's what lesson planning is about. Number one, you have to have a broader plan, and that's your yearly academic plan. So in the beginning of the year, before students are even there, you should look at what your standards are. All right. So the question would be, what are standards? Okay. Anybody know what standards are?
Clear.
Standards are nothing more than expectations. So what does the larger community expect of these students? So let's say I'm teaching third grade. I'm a third grade homeroom teacher, let's say, right? And I'm teaching language arts, teaching science, and teaching math, language arts, science, math, or whatever else you teach in the third grade, right? What are the expectations at the end of your year? So at the end of the year, what should those third graders know and be able to do? Okay. What do those third graders know and should be able to do at the end of the year? If it's a 180-day school year, at the end of that 180 days, what should they know and what should they be able to do? I have to know that in the very beginning, not at the middle. I need to know that at the very beginning. What do you expect of these learners at the end of the school year? Okay. Where does that information come from? Most of the time, it comes from the Ministry of Education or the Department of Education, wherever it's called in your home country, right? In Saudi, it's the Ministry of Education. In America, it's the Department of Education. I don't know what's called in Kenya. Okay. But normally, the government sets those standards. All right. If it's a private school, maybe there's other standards. They may even have higher or lower, depending standards than the government, right? And the government normally gets those expectations from what? They normally take those third graders and say, when those third graders are adults, right? What information do they need to know to thrive? What information do they need to know so they can meet those needs that we find in what? Maslow. So let's go back to Maslow for a second. So you guys see the hierarchy. So what departments of education do, what textbook companies do, right? Is they say, all right, we got third grade classes 2025. By 2035, 10 years later, right? They will be in college or they will be working, right? Right? They'll be on their way to adulthood. What skills do they need to have in 2035 that will make them be able to thrive, that will make them be able to provide their shelter for themselves, provide food for themselves, right? What skills do they need to have to be able to make sure they can provide a level of safety for themselves? What skills do they need to have to produce and maintain and sustain healthy relationships with people, whether it be people in their immediate family, whether it be co-workers, whether it be their neighbors? What skills do they need to have to accomplish their dreams so they can thrive and feel esteem and deal with esteem appropriately? What skills do they need to have so they can become self-actualized. So in thriving societies, that is what's being looked at or should be looked at. That's why I said that a teacher's job is to help students get to self-actualization. Because ultimately, those standards that come from the Department of Education, Ministry of Education, that's in your textbook, that's what people are thinking about when they decide what a third grader needs to know by the end of the school year. That makes sense? Does
Yes.
that make sense? All right.
Yeah. Are
So
they the same, the standards, are they the same like the objectives we write on
we're gonna
lesson
no,
plan?
we're gonna get to that. Good question. That's an excellent question. Excellent question. So, but let's start with standards first. So that's where the standards come from. And sometimes the community, business people, depending on how your country's set up, your government set up, other people are involved in those standards, creating those standards. From those standards, right, we create a curriculum. So, what is a curriculum? A curriculum is how you execute the standards, how you help students meet those standards by the end of the school year. That's a curriculum. So always remember, and anybody ever asks you, you tell them that Dr. Ray said the standards are what we teach. Standards are what we teach. I'm going to say it again because a lot of people mess this up. All right. Your principals, your academic directors, people who go online, people who hold conferences, a lot of people mess this up. So I want you to be able to correct them when you hear this mess up. Standards are what we teach. And the standards help support the student in their long-term journey towards becoming self-actualized, or should be, depending on your country. But ultimately, standards are what we teach. Okay? Curriculum is how we teach them. Okay? Now, keep in mind, I want y'all to listen to this. Listen carefully to me. I want you, because this is very important. Every school may have a different curriculum. Huh? Huh? If I'm in Mombasa and I'm in a neighborhood in Mombasa, a big neighborhood in Mombasa, and let's say this neighborhood has 3 elementary schools in Mombasa. All 3 of those schools, public schools, are under the preview of the Ministry of Education in Kenya. Right? Follow me? So that means the same standards in all 3 of those elementary schools, 3rd grade, same standards. However, each one of those schools can have different curriculum. Huh? Let me say it again, so because I think you didn't hear me properly. Each one of those schools in the same neighborhood, they're following the same standards because they fall under the Ministry of Education. However, each one of those schools may have a different curriculum. Huh? Why? Can anybody tell me why, based on what we talked about in day 1 and day 2 and today? Why would they have the same standards but different curriculum?
Maybe because of the kind of kids they have.
Exactly. That's the answer. That's the answer. Maybe in one part of the neighborhood, it might be a little bit richer than the other parts, right? One part of the neighborhood might be, one part of the community might have a little bit more money, huh? Mothers and father, parents are a little bit more educated, huh? Than the other two parts. Maybe one part of the community is by the warehouse, where a lot of people go to work at the warehouse at a certain age, the packing plant, right? The other school is by the water, huh? And a lot of people in that part of the community go working on the docks by the water. All of these environmental factors, these social factors, will determine the curriculum, what the curriculum is, even though it's the same standard. Mm-hmm. So they're all learning how to divide two digits. They're all learning, but how they go about learning it may be different because the students are different. Maybe because the educators are different. Maybe the tradition in the different schools, right? The type of educators, the philosophy that they follow. Maybe in one school, they do more student-centered social constructivism, whereas the other school, they're doing more behaviorist approach. Maybe one school, they're more Catholics. And then there's Protestants in the other school, and then there's Muslims in the other school. Huh? So all these different factors play a role in how the curriculum is applied. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Same neighborhood, same standards, different curriculum. So here, when you hear this nonsense of British curriculum, American curriculum, it's nonsense. It's complete nonsense. Because if you go to the UK, every school doesn't teach the same way. They teach one way in Manchester, in a neighborhood in Manchester, than they do in London, than they do in Birmingham. Because there's different situations in each city. And even within the city, each neighborhood is different. So even in the UK, that has a national curriculum, so a national standards rather, they have different types of curriculum. Because curriculum is only how you teach. Curriculum is how you teach. It is not what you teach. Also, when you hear this nonsense, there's no such thing as an American curriculum. Oh, they teach American curriculum. Does not exist. Does not exist. You know why? Because in America, we don't have a national curriculum. Because in America, education is not a federal government responsibility. It's a state responsibility. Now, how many states do we have in the United States? We got 50 states in the United States. We have 50 states. Okay? Now, education is a state responsibility in the United States. That means the federal government doesn't really get involved in education. The president of the United States doesn't really get involved in education. The Congress really doesn't get involved in education. They give money to it, but they don't really get involved. In fact, President Trump is doing what? He's trying to get rid of the Department of Education on a federal level because they're saying it's not even needed. We didn't have a Department of Education in America in the federal level until 1978, 76, 78, something like this, with the Carter administration. So it's new. It's a new Department of Government. And Trump is saying we don't even need it. It's a waste of money. It's a state responsibility. And you know what most governors do at the state level? Do you think the states are responsible, but do they make all the decisions? No. They tell the local government, you make the decision, right? So I come from a state of, my state is Maryland. That's my home state. All right. Maryland is not a big state. It's one of the smaller states. It's an important state, but it's one of the smaller states, right? In my state of Maryland, the state government says, no, we're not going to really make a lot of decisions. Each locale will make decisions. So Baltimore City makes decisions, Anne Arundel County makes decisions, Frederick County makes their own decisions. And then the local government even says, hey, principals, you make the decisions for your school. That proves what? That even though each state has standards, right? The federal government doesn't have standards, the state has standards. And then they say, okay, follow these standards, however, do what you want as far as the curriculum. Why do they do that? Because they know that everyone's situation is a little bit different. My situation in Maryland is different than another situation, what's going on in Western Maryland, then Central Maryland, then Southern Maryland. So understand that there's no such thing as a British curriculum. There's no such thing as an American curriculum. All right. All right. They just don't exist. Okay. Now, is there an approach? Is there a British approach? Yes. Is there an American approach? I guess. I don't even know if there's an American approach because America is so diverse. But understand the curriculum is nothing more than how you teach the standards. So the standards are the what you teach. Curriculum is how you teach the what. Now, this is important that teachers know this. That means teachers need to be looking at the standards when they go for create their yearly plan. Now, yearly plan. How do you start? 180 school days. How do I write a yearly plan? Well, you write a yearly plan the same way a supermarket builds when they build a supermarket. You know when they build a supermarket, a Tamimi, a Panda, Carrefour, you know the first place they start when they build a supermarket? When they design the supermarket, the way the first place they start? Can you think? Do you think? Can you guess? So let's say they open in a Tamimi in your neighborhood. They got the lot, right? They got the land, they built the building. What's the first place when they design the inside of the store? Where do they start first? They
maybe
start. Go ahead. Maybe
the owl.
Not the owls. They start at the cash register first. They figure out where the cash registers need to be first. Why? It's called backwards mapping. Because then once they give you if they start with the cash register, then they can determine what the design should be so the customer can go through what? As many aisles as possible. Because they want you to go through as many aisles as you can. So that's why when you go there to get some milk and some bread, so I'm only gonna get two things. I'm only gonna get milk and bread. And then what happens? You come out with milk, bread, pies, soda, right? Because they designed it in a way where you go, oh, you know what? I need that. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's on sale? Let me get two of those. Oh, man, I really like those. Let me get those chips. So you went there to get milk and bread. You come out with 300 reals worth of stuff, right? Now, because they backwards mapped the store out. They designed the store to get you to see as much items in the store as possible. So you can walk by as much items in the store as possible and start putting stuff in the cart. Okay? That's called back. We do the same thing in education. We do the same thing in education. We backwards map. So in order to backwards map, you have to know what the destination is. If you don't know what the destination is, if you're not creating a unit plan, an academic plan, you don't know where you're going to go. You're on vacation and at the airport and don't have a destination. So you need to know where is my target at the end of the school year. And you have to have a plan, a yearly plan to figure out what your target is. Keeping in mind that every last one of those learners in your classroom have different wants, needs, and expectations. So you got to also keep that in mind. This is why, as I said several times yesterday and the day before, every school should, the first month of school, there should be no teaching. The first month of school, there should be no teaching whatsoever. The only thing that should be is teachers and everyone in the school getting to know each other. And during that time, it should be a half a day. Teachers do activities to get to know the students. And then the other half of the day, the teachers are taking that data to create the yearly plan. All right. That's what we call data-driven decisions. As a teacher, you do not go by your feelings. I don't care about your feelings as a teacher. As a principal, as a leader, I don't care about the teacher's feelings. I care less. I care less about your feelings. I only want to know what the data is. Don't tell me how you feel. Oh, I think we should go on this field trip because I feel like the students will have fun. I don't care. Denied. But if you come to me and you say, Dr. Ray, we should go on this field trip because the students really enjoy X and this will support X, Y, which actually helps develop the person that we want by the end of the school year. You tell me that, approved. So the biggest problem in education is one of the biggest problems, there's many problems, is that people go by their feelings. Your feelings mean nothing. Data. We talked about first day, we talked about quantitative and qualitative, right? I want to know the data. Give me the data because we can only make data-driven decisions. Don't tell me what you did with your kid when he was in the third grade. Your kid is not there. This is not about your kid. This is about the kids that you're currently teaching and their wants, needs, and expectations, not your feelings, not your wants, needs, and expectations. Okay. So we have to make data-driven decisions. You have to know what that destination is. Where are we going? Where should we be by the end of the school year? And then we create what we call benchmarks. Throughout the school year, we create benchmarks to determine that we're going the right direction. Because we all know you can make a plan, but everything doesn't go as planned, right? That's life, right? You can plan and things don't go as planned, right? Does everything go as planned? Has everything gone as planned in your life? No. That's just the reality. You can plan all you want. Things don't go as planned. So we have what we call benchmarks to make sure that we're going in the right direction that we set out for. All right. So we create benchmarks and then we have something called scoping. We do something called scoping sequencing. So make sure that everything that we do We understand the scope of what we're doing, and we sequence it out. We order it out. That's going to lead us to the destination that we want. It's going to lead us to the destination that we want. All right? And we do this continuously. But how many, you guys have been teaching, how many teachers have talked to you? How many principals, how many academic directors, how many quote unquote supervisors talk to you about scope and sequencing? Benchmarking. Oh. Going back to the Tamimi analogy, right? That whoever's the store manager of that Tamimi, what's he doing? He's looking at reports. How do we know what type of food, what type of items should be in the store? How does he make that? Does he say, I feel like the people in this neighborhood like this type of food? I feel like it. So I'm going to put it in because I feel like it. No, he's going by what? Data, right? Right? So every time you scan an item in a store, right, it's going into their replenishment system, right? And they're saying, okay, you know, 3,500 people bought this particular item. So this must be a popular item or not popular. Not too many people bought it. They go by the data. So every time you scanning an item, it's not just telling the store, it's telling you how much you owe. It's also telling the store manager that we need to replenish that item. We need to order it again. So there's an automatic replenishment system, right? It is also telling the buyers we need to continue to buy it, because when whoever's selling this item, they say, "Oh, you're gonna place another order?" We're not gonna place another order because not a lot of people are buying it. Because here's the data, here's the numbers. Oh yeah, we're gonna place a double order because it's in high demand. It's always selling out. They know that because of the numbers, not by how anyone feels. So as teachers, we have to operate the same way. We always have to collect data. And our data, we should have a notebook with our students' information. Depending on how organized you are, maybe you put it on a spreadsheet, whatever you do to know Muhammad likes this, Sarah likes this, boom, Miriam likes this, doesn't like this, score this on a quiz. And you continuously are using that information to make data-driven decisions, not talking about how you feel. Okay? So that is a yearly plan. The yearly plan is about the things you're going to do along the way to get to a certain destination. Now, once you have, and you're going to break them up, you're going to scope and sequence, you're going to break things up into units, right? That's what the textbook does, right? We've seen the textbooks before. Textbooks do what? They break things up into units. Now, let's talk about textbooks for a second. A lot of times in Saudi, you particularly see this in Saudi, you particularly see this in Saudi. A lot of schools just go by the textbook, right? A lot of schools just go by the textbook. That makes sense. You see that in Saudi a lot. What's in the textbook? What's the textbook? Even the parents say, "What textbooks are you using?" Right? Is that right? Am I right or wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the textbook? What textbook are you using? What textbook are you using? What textbook are you using? And they even many schools even brag, we use Cambridge. We use Pearson. I want you to know that textbooks are not curriculums. You know you're at a bad school when they use the textbook as the curriculum. Textbooks are not designed to be curriculums. Textbooks are designed to be resources. If you look at a textbook, textbooks will have different units, right? Different unit of the textbook, right? Those units, a lot of times, they are compartmentalized. They don't work in concert with one another. They don't work in concert with one another, right? Because the book is not designed to go from page 1 to page 200 and then you know everything you need to know. That's not how the book was designed. The book was designed for teachers to use it as a resource. Maybe I'll start with unit 3, and then I'll go to unit 7, and then I'll go back to unit 1, and then I'll go to unit 10. Based on my what? My yearly plan. So I come up with my unit plan and how I sequence. Remember, I talked about scope and sequencing, how I sequence it out. Right? So textbooks are not curriculums. Let me say it again. Textbooks are not curriculum. And if your school uses the textbook as a curriculum, they simply don't know what they're doing. Or they may know what they're doing, but they're being completely lazy. Textbooks are not curriculums. They're only to be used as resources. Only to be used as resources. A student, if the textbook was the curriculum, then people could just buy the textbook. They don't even need to go to school. Just go buy a textbook. The parents will say, read the textbook. So what is the teacher's job then? Huh? What do they need you for? Think about it. What do they need me for? If the textbook was the curriculum, if the textbook was the how, they wouldn't need a teacher. You just say, read the book. Huh? No, textbook is only the resource to be used per the standards and the expectations that you have for their students in that particular age level. Keep it in mind that all students are not the same. So how does one resource blanket and cover all the wants, needs, and expectations of all students? Right? Textbooks are only a resource. All right? Textbooks are not curriculum. Again, everything that you do in the school is the curriculum. From the curriculum starts with the what time they come to school, how long they go to school for, the duration and frequency. So if they go to school for 180 days, that's the duration. Frequency, 5 days a week, 6 hours a day. That's the frequency. That's curriculum. Every decision that the principal makes is curriculum. Every decision that you make is curriculum. How they get to school is curriculum. What they do after school is curriculum. Everything that supports or actually blocks learning is curriculum. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So everything that you do. So if you have a habit of leaving your class and get a cup of coffee or talking to your friend, that's a part of your curriculum. Because you're taking away from the instructional time. So you can have some bad curricular practices. Just keep that in mind of what curriculum is. All right. So now that you have your yearly plan, you have your unit plans, because you're gonna break that yearly plan into unit plans. You're gonna break them into themes, right? Looking at the standards, and you're gonna scope and sequence things out properly so that learners can build on their knowledge. So let's talk about building on your knowledge. There's a guy named Stephen Krashen. He's still alive. Very important in the world of language acquisition. He has a couple ideas that I want to share with you today. The first is, when we're building our unit plans, our academic plans, our lesson plans, our unit plans with students, always keep in mind I+1. I+1. Okay. What do I mean by I+1? I represents what the student already knows. I represents what the student already knows. Huh? I want you to track with me now. Stay with me. I represents what the student already knows. Your job in that daily lesson plan is to add one bit of information to what they already know. I+1. Now tell me something. Please help me with something. If you don't know what they already know, how can you I+1? Because if you deal with something a person already knows, they're more likely to be what? Engage in it. Remember, we talked about getting that information to the frontal lobe, and that the information needs to be relative to their experiences. So I take something that they already know, and I add one bit of more information to it, and it's more likely that they're willing to accept it in their frontal lobe, that it will stay in their long-term memory. If I start square zero, then I got a lot of convincing to do. If I don't connect what I'm teaching my students in that lesson to something that they don't already know, I'm probably not going to get any student with me. I'm probably going to get a lot of fight, flight, and freeze. So it's essential. It is essential. Remember, we talked about the difference between essential and important, Sarah. It is essential. It is essential. It is essential that learners, that educators rather, connect what learners already know to the new information they want to give the learner. If you don't do that, you're going to lose 90% of your learners. And the only learners that's going to stick with you are those learners who are what? Intrinsically motivated. And that's not going to be a lot of them, if you have any. Remembering that most of your learners are extrinsically motivated, or integratively motivated, or instrumentally motivated. So this is another argument for it. You have to get to know your student. You have to know the things that they already learned. This is another piece of evidence for what? We should not be teaching or attempting to teach in the first month. We should be giving them assessments and determining what they already know and talking to the prior teacher. This is one of the disadvantages of international schools, especially abroad, in situations like the Middle East and other places where people are always moving and transient, is that I don't get a chance to talk. If I'm teaching at third grade, I don't get a chance to talk to the second grade teacher because this might be his first year in the school, right? He's new to the school. So I don't get a chance to talk to the second grade teacher. That's a disadvantage for international schools. Major disadvantage. Because I need to get as much information. See, when you're in your home country, right, you tend to go to the same elementary school, right, for the most part. And then you go into the middle school, the same one. So your teacher can do what? Your third grade teacher can talk to your the second grade teacher and say, well, how was Ray? Oh, Ray doesn't like this, and Ray gets upset with this, and he likes to go to the bathroom a lot, and And so now I have that information. And then I can see it, I can look for certain things myself. If the kids need to, I don't know anything about this kid. And I can't ask, if I ask the parent's gonna tell me he's an angel. Oh, my kid is smart. Oh, my kid is wonderful. Oh, my kid is perfect. Oh, my kid, right? The parents not going to tell you the bad things. Most parents, some parents do, but most parents are going to tell you the kid's smart. You figure it out. So this is another argument that the first month of school, and I know, listen, I'm not delusional. I know that there's not going to be one school that's going to give you a month to only get to know your students. I know that. Okay. I know that. I'm just telling you that one day, if you run a school, that you should do that. Or you have the opportunity that this is what you should do when you become the boss. Because I know that 99.9% of schools are not going to give you a month just to know your teachers. I mean, know your students. They should, but they won't. Right? All right. So you have to I+1. You should always be adding on what the student already knows. You can even do this in kindergarten because kindergartens know a lot actually. So every time you teach something, you add on to what the student already knows. Now you have to be creative on how you connect the two things, or what they already know and what you're trying to teach. You got to be creative. That's why you got to ear hustle. You got to watch. You got to be friendly. You got to get them to talk to you. And you're always gaining that information, that data-driven information. This is what I'm talking about. Making data-driven decisions, and it's ongoing. Teaching is not about walking into a classroom and just want the students. You ever seen Charlie Brown? You guys watch Charlie Brown? Charlie Brown's kind of an American thing. But if you Charlie Brown, when they're always in class, you notice everybody in Charlie Brown speaks English except the teacher. You never notice that? The teacher, what is the teacher? The teacher is want. You know why they did that? You know why Charles Schultz, the creator of the Peanuts, did that? To demonstrate how teachers sound to young people. That's how they sound. Because most teachers are not getting to know their students. They're not speaking the same language as their students. All right, I+1. The other thing that Krashen talked about, which is important, is something called comprehensible inputs. Now, this is some people, different schools of thought, they don't like Krashen's comprehensible inputs. I think they're retarded. Okay. Comprehensible inputs it's a simple idea to understand that when you give learners information, especially when you're trying to teach them a language, but applies to anything, but it really works, it really helps when you're trying to teach someone a language, that what you're giving them must be understandable. Write this down now. Comprehensible inputs, Krashen. It must be understandable. It must be understandable, and it must be compelling. Let me say that again. When you give learners information, I+1, right? That +1, that +1 must be understandable, and it must be compelling. Because if it's not compelling, the amygdala, well, number one, if it's not understandable, what is the RES going to do? We don't want you. Unsafe. Wah, 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 wah. If it's understandable but not compelling, what is the amygdala going to do? Nothing in it for me. Nothing in it for me. I want, I want, I want, I want, I want, I want, I want. So it must be understandable and compelling. Now, that's the hard part. So you have to know what the student understands, and you have to know what is compelling to them. This is hard because you're not their same age. You're not their same age. There's a big age difference. So the number one thing that teachers always say, how you guys failed the quiz? I taught it to you. I taught you guys this. You didn't teach them anything. You were talking. I want, I want, I want, I want, I want, I want, I want. And that's what they heard, and that's why they didn't pass the quiz. So when learners fail the quiz, it's because you didn't teach it.
You know, my
We love to
class,
blame the students. I taught y'all this. I taught y'all this. We went over this 20 times yesterday. How did you fail it? Because it wasn't understandable or compelling. You can repeat it. Listen, I don't understand Arabic. I don't understand Russian. I don't understand Spanish. You can say it in Russian, Spanish, Arabic, Swahili 1,000,000 times to me. And guess what? I'm not going to understand it. Huh? You can repeat it all you want. I'm not going to understand it. I don't speak the language.
Mhm.
And that's what happens in classrooms all across the world. The teacher repeats things and repeats things that are not understandable or compelling. And then they give them a quiz. And then what happens? Because I don't understand what's wrong with you kids nowadays. You don't study. I gave you homework. And it's your fault.
I take
Not
the
the student.
blame.
Not the student. When students fail, it's the teacher's fault. Bottom line, I wholeheartedly believe that. Unless the student was not there and absent that day, it is your fault. Because you are not connecting with them in ways where they understand you. You're not applying I plus one. A lot of times we go above the student's level. We talk out of their range. This is why this is another piece of important information. This is why you have formative assessments. So you have two types of assessments. You have formative assessments and you have summative assessments.
Let me see.
Right? Okay.
Now I understand this.
Okay. Formative assessments is for you, it's the data to make sure that while you are engaged with the learners, they understand what you're saying. So you ask them questions, you give them things to verify that what is coming out your mouth is going into their ears. Is the message sent, the message received? Write that down. Is the message sent, the message received? Is the message sent, the message received? That's what formative assessments are about. Is to make sure that while I'm teaching, while I'm engaging with the learners, that what is coming out my mouth, they actually understand it. Instead of me just sitting there talking for 45 minutes, and then the next day I said, well, we covered this yesterday. And like, what? We covered what yesterday? Huh? Guys, I spent 45 minutes talking about this because I didn't confirm that they understood what I was saying throughout my lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And students are not going to raise their hand and say, I don't understand what you're saying. They're going to sit there and they're going to go, yep, yep, yep. And you can say, do you understand? Yep, yep. And then you ask them a question and they go, I don't understand. So good instruction is by continuously doing formative assessments, about what we call teacher noticing, scanning the room, see who's on their phone, see who's looking down at their shoes, see who's falling asleep, see who's giving you eye contact, keeping them involved, not talking a lot. That's why you got to reduce your teacher talk. I know I'm not demonstrating that in this session because I'm doing a lot of talking, but hopefully as the course goes on, you guys do more talking. But especially in the K-12 classroom, you have to reduce your teacher talk. You got to get them to talk to you as a form of a formative assessment so you know what is going on. In my opinion, quizzes should never be graded. Quizzes should never be graded and count against a student. Quizzes should only be there and only there to what? As data for the teacher to confirm that we're speaking the same language. So I'll give you a little quiz. I look at the quiz and everybody fails it. I don't blame the students. I go, God, I messed up. I did something wrong. And I go back and I do what? Reteach. Quizzes are formative assessments. But we have weaponized quizzes. We have weaponized quizzes. We now use them. Oh, I'm going to give you a quiz. That quiz is coming up. It's 25% of your grade. It's 15% of your grade, the quiz. And we make students so scared of the quiz, and it's not the intent of a quiz. That's not the intent of an assessment. The intent of assessment is to tell the teacher whether the teacher is moving in the right way and speaking to the students in ways that the students understand the teacher. Not to punish or penalize the student and make them fearful. Because when we do that, then we encourage cheating. We encourage cheating by doing that. Students cheat because of teachers. We put so much pressure on them that they say, I gotta cheat. And then when students cheat, everyone loses. Because students don't really learn anything. And the teachers live in this false sense of, oh, my students did so well on the quiz. I'm so great. I'm an awesome teacher. They cheated. And we know students can cheat. Right? So we do formative assessments throughout the lesson, throughout the unit, to make sure that's a part of the scope and sequencing. That's a part of the benchmarking. Now, benchmarking a little bit more elaborate assessments, but it can be a part of the benchmarking also to make sure that we're what? We're moving towards day 180 if you have 180 days in your school day. So in America, we have 180 school calendar days. Other countries have more, some have less. But your job is to make sure that you are moving towards 180 and that whatever those standards said the students should look, that you come as close as possible to those standards. So you're benchmarking. All right. So let's talk about the daily lesson plan. How much time do I have? Let's talk about the daily lesson plan. So you asked the question, Sarah, about objectives. The objective is what you specifically will do in that block of instruction that will support the standard. Objectives are specific. Objectives are specific. Objectives are things, individual things that you do that supports the larger goal at 180. All right. So so let's say in the unit, we would teaching students in this unit, we're teaching them how to divide. And so we break the units down in different pieces, right? So now we're teaching them how to divide 2 digits, right? That's a part of the unit, how to divide 2-digit numbers, right? And we're teaching them processes and the steps that they have to do, right? I can benchmark that out, right? But in the daily lesson plan, I'm gonna write what I want, or what the skill that I want the students to work on that will get them to be able to divide 2 digits. Depending on how you break it up. So let's say you're teaching them how to do remainders or whatever your approach is, because your curriculum could be different than another teachers, another schools, right? So you break it up. So in that objective, you're going to state exactly what you're going to do to help the student divide. So that means objectives must be SMART. I think we're going to stop there. Objectives, what time I have? Yeah, once I finish this, we'll stop. Objectives must be SMART because they are individual lessons, your daily lesson plan, that helps the student reach a higher goal, which may be being able to divide 2 digits. Because we know there's different steps involved. There's some subtraction, there might be some multiplication involved, right? There's some steps involved. And so we're going to break those steps down into chewable pieces, digestible pieces, right? And they are a part of our objective. So remember, objectives are extremely specific. They are specific, and they must be SMART. They must be SMART. All right, so let's break down SMART. The S stands for what? Specific. All right. An objective cannot be broad. It must be specific. Students will be able to take the divisor into students will be able to divide 1 digit into another 1-digit number, a smaller 1-digit number into a larger 1-digit number. Okay. Must be specific. So the S in SMART stands for specific. It can't be broad. Okay. Got that? The S stands for specific. The M stands for measurable. The objective must be measurable. That means, remember day one we talked about quantitative and qualitative, Sarah. That measurable is quantitative. That you can actually see it. You can actually see that the student has done it. So it must be measurable, something that can be measured. Things that cannot be measured, so you'll never have an objective that will say students will know how to. No, because you can't measure what a student knows. That can't be measured. Students will understand. No, understanding cannot be measured. You can't measure understanding. Make sense? Can't measure understanding. How you measure it? How you count understanding? How you measure it? How you measure it? No. Remember. Students will remember. How you know they remember? So we don't use subjective words. We use quantifiable words. Words students will be able to count. Can you measure count? Can you see whether a student actually can count? Yeah, you can do that. Students will write a sentence. Students will divide a smaller number into a bigger number, right? And determine the remainder if a remainder exists. That you can measure, right? You can say they did it correctly 5 times. They did it incorrectly 1 time, right? So you got specific and measurable. The A is achievable. The A is achievable. That means is it something that the student can reasonably do in that time period? And a lot of teachers mess this up. If you have that's probably one of my biggest challenges that I've had in the past, is I want to put too much stuff, have the students do too much stuff in a 50-minute block of instruction, or a 45-minute block of instruction, or a 30-minute, right? So you got to take the time that you have. Can they do it in that time period? Also, is it within their ability? Right? I'm not going to ask a 3rd grader to do calculus, right? Or trigonometry or geometry. That's not in their ability, unless they're a genius. Not in most the average 3rd grader's ability. So I'm not gonna ask them to write a 5-page paper. Can a 3rd grader write a 5-page paper? Probably not. Right? I'm not gonna ask them to do a big analysis in the 3rd grade. They can't do it. They don't have the ability to do it. So is it achievable, attainable? Okay. What's the next one? R is relevant. R is relevant. Relevant meaning, do the students really know do they need to know this? Is it relevant to their wants, needs, and expectations? All right. That goes back to the standards. That's why we said in the standards, we look and we say 10 years from now, these things the students are going to need to know. Right? So relevancy. So in 2025, would I waste time teaching students how to type? Would we do that in 2025? Waste time teaching students how to type? Probably not. Now, when I was in the 6th grade, I took a typing class.
Me too.
Why? Because back then we actually had typewriters. That's how old I am. We actually had the metal typewriters. You know that you seen them you guys are young. You go you had to put the paper in and roll it. You seen those? You ever seen those? And so like typing, I think you had to take like women were really good typists. Like could type like 120 words a minute, right? And to this day, I put my fingers on the keyboard the way my teacher taught me. To this day, in 6th grade, the way she taught me, right? And that's how I type, right? But is that skill necessary now? No, because we don't have typewriters anymore. So being able to type 120 words a minute, it doesn't really matter anymore. We got spell check now. We got all these technology. We don't have typewriters anymore. We're well beyond that. But when I was in the 6th grade, somebody wasn't smart enough to say, you know what? 10 years from now, Ray Robbins is not going to need to know how to type 120 words per minute because they won't be typewriters. Right? And guess what? You think the typewriting teacher, you think she's going to advocate against that? No, she'd be out of a job. So she's like, yeah, teach them how to type. You see? So if you think about it, when I was in school, I think I was at Heron Run Middle School. My principal in the Department of Education in Baltimore City didn't do a good job for me because instead of wasting that time typewriting, teaching me how to type, they should have been teaching me what? Coding, because that was the up and coming thing, right? That was the up and coming thing, right? Is teach the kids how to code, right? So you see how that could change the trajectory? I could have been the next Bill Gates. I could have been the next Mark Zuckerberg if I took a typing class. I mean, a coding class instead of a typing class. But no, I'm learning how to type 120 words per minute in a skill that I wouldn't need later on in my life. You see how this is important? Okay. And that's why people claim racism and all this, because they say, well, some people are more advantaged than others because of the neighborhood they live in or the country they live in or whatever the case may be. And that is true, because some places people have a better foresight. They can predict the future better than other people. And then some people are like my typewriting teacher. She's not going to say, hey, these kids don't need to know how to type anymore, because she wants to protect her job. Or maybe she doesn't even know, but she didn't know at the time. All right. But it proves what? Our job is to make sure these young people are prepared for the demands of when they become adults. So relevancy, that's R, that's relevant. The last one is T, timely. T is timely. And T is, can you do it in the block of instruction that you have? Can it get completed? Can that activity be completed in that block of instruction? So if you have 30 minutes, can you do it in 30 minutes? Can you do it in 45 minutes? If you have an hour and 20 minutes, can you do it in an hour and 20 minutes? Okay. So you have S is specific, M is measurable, A is attainable. Sometimes people call it achievable. R is relevant or realistic. Some people say relevant, some people say realistic. T is timely. Every objective that you write must be smart. Even in the business world, when they write business objectives, they're smart. They're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Okay? So if you go in business, you have objectives, they must be smart. Okay? And these objectives, you're gonna have 180 of them. So in one class, in one class period, you may have several objectives, because remember, they must be specific. So when you're breaking something down, you break it down into chewable parts. Remember, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So keep that in mind. When you're lesson planning, you break everything down to the smallest denominator, the lowest denominator, so it's understandable for the students. Don't assume, unless you already know they're advanced, but then it's I+1, so you're giving them something advanced anyway, right? But always break it down to the smallest denominator. Even if it's easy for you, still break it down to the lowest step. First we do this, then we're going to 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 do this, right? Even if it seems very baby, let the students tell you, let the students jump steps because they feel confident. But you break it down and you break it and you write an objective for each one of those breakdowns, right? And remember, in a daily lesson, you don't have to accomplish the world. You only need to accomplish one bit of information that they didn't already know for each lesson. Only one bit of information that they didn't already know. Don't feel the need that you need to bombard them with 20 things. No. If they learn one bit of thing, because guess what happens? What we say, Sarah? Who's the teacher? Are you the teacher? Are you the teacher? No, you're not the teacher. They're the teacher. They teach themselves. So if you give them one bit of information and it gets to their frontal lobe, huh? Follow me now. If it gets to their frontal lobe, what are they going to do with it? They're going to go and start doing more research and think about it themselves. All you need to do is like the noon driver, like the Amazon driver. All you got to do is deliver the package. Make sure it gets to their doorstep. And they're going to be the ones that unpack it, open it up and unpack it, and figure out how it works for their life. You're just a delivery driver. Huh? You a high paid, high priced delivery driver, delivering information. They're responsible for unpacking it, for using it. Your job is to deliver that one bit of information to their frontal lobe, making sure that you break down that one bit of information to the lowest common denominator so that it's understandable for them, and confirming that through formative assessments. Okay? Making sure that it's smart, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. Once you get that information, deliver that information to the frontal lobe, they will do with it as they wish. Yes. They'll do with it as they wish. Okay. I'll be remiss not to say something about summative assessments. Summative assessments, these are your bigger tests. These are like your unit tests, the midterm, the final exam. Especially the final exam. These are summative assessments. The unit tests, midterm, final exam. These are summative assessments. My thoughts of summative assessments, normally in a summative assessment, you don't go back and teach. It is what it is. You move on to the next unit, even though that's probably not the best practice. With formative assessments, allow us to say, I need to go back and reteach. All right, formative assessment. So quizzes, asking questions. The British call it concept checking. Make sure students understand the concept. Okay. These are formative assessments we go back and teach. Typically in summative assessments, we don't have time to go back and teach because it's the end of the course or the end of the unit. Now, my position on that is if the students totally flunk the unit and that unit is tied to the next unit, like in math, right? You got to learn one thing to do the next thing a lot of times in math. So you got to learn this unit to do the next unit. So that means, in like math, if they fail the summative assessment, in my opinion, you need to reteach that unit again, because why are you going to go on to the next unit when they need that bit of information for that unit? Doesn't make any sense. But things like language arts is typically in history. You can fail something in one unit in history and then pass it in the next. So that's the difference between formative assessments. Formative assessments for the teacher to figure out whether the students are understanding what's going on. Summative assessments is for grading and to determine whether the students pass or fail or on grade level or not on grade level. Okay. Let me give you this bit of information about testing. When you're teaching, you're teaching. When you're testing, you're testing. Keep that in mind. You're not teaching. When you're teaching, you're teaching. Now, why is that important? When you're teaching, you always give the students the answer. Huh? When you're teaching, you always give the students the answer. Always. And the answer, and if you're really good, the answer should always be somewhere in the classroom. I took one teacher years ago. We were supposed to have all these teachers to go with me to the United States, and only one got the visa. Dana. So me and Dana, I took Dana to the United States to the school I used to go to, my old high school, and we visited a teacher's class, and she said this teacher had stuff all over the room. And it's funny to me because I hear people say, oh, American classrooms are so sloppy. No, it's not sloppy. It's actually, there's a reason why we do it this way. And the teacher had things all over the walls, right? Even on the ceiling. on the ceiling. There's stuff on the ceiling. Like not like hanging, like stuff like posters on the ceiling. And Dana said, "Why do you have stuff on the ceiling?" And the teacher says, "Well, sometimes when I ask them a question, they go like this." So he said, "I noticed that they always went like this, so I start putting the answers on the ceiling." That's good teaching. That's a teacher who realized actions of their students and adjusted accordingly. So when you're teaching, the answer to whatever you're going to present. This is why planning, 90% of what we do is plan. We think and we plan, then we execute. Because we say, I'm going to teach this. Everything, every formative assessment, every question I will ask will be somewhere in the classroom. Every question I'm going to ask for this day is going to be the answer to that question is going to be somewhere in the classroom. Whether it's on the board, whether it's on the wall, whether it's on their desk, it's going to be somewhere in the classroom. The answer. I'm going to tell it to them. They're going to read it in a book, and they're also going to be able to see it. It takes planning to do that. This is why you have the lesson plan. And this is why I said anybody who says they don't lesson plan or you don't have to lesson plan, wow. All right, that's it for today. We will resume Sunday at 11. What you're going to do, Blessing, is you're going to read the textbook. First 15 page, first 25 pages. Let's say 25 pages. You're going to do your journal. So just get a notebook, like just get a regular notebook, like an A4 size paper. I'm going to add you to the Google Classroom. You'll see that where it says journal. There's the two questions I gave earlier. The only thing I ask is that you handwrite it. You handwrite it with your hand, and you fill the page up. That's the only thing I ask. And so we'll start Sunday's class by asking both of you, what did you basically, if you have any questions, number one, and kind of tell me what you learned, how you would use what you learned in your class, in your teaching experience. Okay. Are there any questions right now? No? No questions? I also want to say that every day is not going to be me just talking. We're just in initial classes now. I'm going to give you guys opportunities to lead the class, okay? And actually teach me some stuff. All right?
Yeah.
If there's nothing else, I will see you guys Sunday at 11. Okay? Oh, Blessing, make sure, send me your email. You have Gmail?
No, I have Outlook.
Outlook should work. Outlook
Okay.
should work, I think. So send me your Outlook on WhatsApp, and I'll add you to the Google Classroom. If you don't get it, it's better. I think it's better that I just send you the link. I'll send you the link. That'd be easier. I'll send you the invitation link. And the good thing about Google Classroom, you can add it to your phone, or it's already in your. You don't have Gmail at all?
It's not in use.
Yeah, I would highly advise that you use Gmail why? Because Gmail offers so many free apps, right? They offer a lot of free apps that you could use in your teaching. Google Classroom. I mean, there's so many apps. So I would highly get a Gmail account. You'll find it very beneficial to your teaching. They also have a free course on AI and lesson planning that you can take for free. It only takes like 2 or 3 hours. So I would set up a Gmail account. It's free, and take advantage of those apps that you can get on Gmail. Okay.
Sorry.
So I'll send you in your WhatsApp a link to join the Google Classroom. I'll do that now, and then yeah, I'll also send you my details so you can send your deposit.
It's all right.
Okay. All right. I'll see you guys on.
Can I send the deposit by Sunday? Because I've got cash.
Yeah, no problem. No, that's fine. It's
It's all
okay.
right. Thank you.
All right. All right.
It's all right.
All right. We'll see you
Thank
guys
you.
on Saturday. All right. Sunday, not Saturday. It's Sunday.
All right. It's okay. Have a nice day.
That's it.